All right. We're going to talk today about Paul, the apostle of grace. I think most people realize when they're looking at the scriptures that Paul puts a great emphasis on grace, and he talks about it a lot, and he uses all kinds of phrases related to grace, the gospel of the grace of God, the administration or dispensation of grace, all these grace words. So I think most of Christianity realizes that Paul is the apostle of grace. But the little twist up here is, as we've been learning, the Charis family of words is rooted in joy. So here's the transition. Paul's the apostle of joy. how awesome is that? The apostle of joy. That understanding in itself takes what we thought grace was to a whole nother level, to a whole nother place. And I just want to think about that for a moment. I know recently we talked about contrasting joy and happiness with the world's imitation of that's based in circumstance and that's based in environment. And Paul is the apostle of joy that is rooted in faith and it's rooted in truth. And as a result, you can read Paul's epistles and can't help but see the exuberance that he is expressing by divine revelation and inspiration concerning grace or concerning joy. And it is abundant the more you look and the more Father opens your eyes and you just see it, not only constantly, the words constantly used, but constantly become the context of all the passages. And I'll say this, Paul was also, I think we could probably say that Paul, among all apostles in the New Testament, Paul was also the apostle of suffering. I don't believe there was any apostle who suffered so severely and for so long that we have the scriptural record for. And yet, how could he be the apostle of joy? How could the apostle who was severely persecuted and there was severe, in fact, I'm going to read it to you. And this actually emphasizes to us, reinforces what we've discussed before, that joy and happiness are not related to circumstances or environment. Listen to this. I'm going to read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, starting with verse 23. He says, in weaknesses more exceedingly, in jails more exceedingly. So now Paul is going over all the negatives. If you want to talk about weak, I exceed in weakness over all the others. If you want to talk about jail time, I've got a bigger criminal record than anybody. He's talking about the apostles and ministers, the ones. And notice what he says, in blows, getting beat up, inordinately, in deaths often. By Jews 5 times, I got 40 save 1. You got 39 lashes on five different occasions. You and I meet people. First of all, you and I, Steve, sometimes we might want to bemoan whatever trial we're going through. It ain't nothing. It is, we live in privilege and comfort compared to even kings of history. Air-conditioned homes, heated homes, air-conditioned cars, heated seats in our cars. Go to the grocery store in abundance. everywhere, everything. And yet Paul's describing for us circumstances that would seem unbearable. Environment, which was harsh. So 5 times he received 39 stripes. Thrice he was flogged with rods. We'd be all over with one flogging. We're done. Now, I know we wouldn't if God wrote our script, but I'm just saying, we live in a nation of grumblers and complainers and moaners and critics. And he says, and once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the swamp. In journeys often, in dangers of rivers, in dangers of robbers, in dangers of my race, my very kinmen turned against me, in dangers of the nations, in dangers in the city, in dangers in the wilderness, in dangers in the sea, in dangers among false brethren, in toil and labor, in vigils often, in famine. We've never been in any of those. In thirst, in feast often, in cold, in nakedness, apart from which is outside, and that which is coming upon me daily, the solicitude of all the ecclesias. And then to beat it all, I got to deal with the saints. Oh my God. He's the apostle of suffering. How the apostle of suffering, also the apostle of joy and happiness. It's not circumstances. It's not environment. It's not outward. This is a divine operation. And why wouldn't it be? Because joy is the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy. It's a second fruit of the Spirit. And so Paul is not only the apostle of suffering, but he's the apostle of joy. And this pain-ridden apostle. And by the way, if you get stoned and beaten with rods and beaten with whips, and you experience many of these things he did, you have a lifetime effect from them. Pain. Residual. And this pain-ridden apostle even writes an epistle that's totally focused on joy. There's probably hardly any Christians who does not know, if we ask them, if they've spent any time in church or study, to tell us what the epistle of joy is, and it's Philippians, written by the suffering apostle. And where does he write it from? In prison. How is it possible that a prisoner in prison can write a book about joy? It is the divine operation of God. It is divine empowerment. It is divine life. It is the spirit life in this administration. So Paul's the apostle of joy. His gospel is the gospel of the joy of God. His Father is the God, the happy God. And the administration, what he is administering and taking care of and doing in his daily life, is the administration of the joy of God. Now we're going to read one verse. Ephesians chapter 3. Those of us who are following us in the study Bible know that I am engulfed in Ephesians. And Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 2 we read, I'll just start with verse 1 and we'll be done. On this behalf, I, Paul, the prisoner of Christ Jesus. Circumstances are bad. Environment is bad. Say, Clyde, you don't understand what I'm going through. You're talking about joy and happiness, and you're out of touch. Perhaps we're in divine touch, like Paul, the prisoner of Christ Jesus. And we've mentioned this before. Paul didn't see himself as a prisoner of Rome. He looked beyond his circumstance. He looked beyond his environment. And he saw only God. He looked beyond his antagonist and he saw the Father. That fixes everything, really. The prisoner of Christ Jesus for you nations, since you surely hear of the administration, listen to this, the administration of the Charis of God. The administration. We're administering. We're involved in the official details of what? Charis. We're involved in the administration of the joy of God. I'd sign up if this was sign upable. But it's not. You have to have a divine appointment. You have to be appointed to this. You have to be chosen and elect and the outcalled. And we are. How do we know we are? Because when we read that verse, we know it's us. We say, oh my God, that's me. Divine realization. Everybody else is reading over the verses. Father's pulling us into the verses. It's like, that's you. If you hear of the dispensation of the joy of God that is given to me, he's the apostle of joy. The administration of the joy of God was given to Paul. Here, Paul. What does Paul have possession of? What is he in charge of? What does he have oversight of? What is he the minister of? The joy of God. But then what does he say? To hear of the administration of the joy of God that is given to me for you. He's the middleman. Did I lose you? Okay. Up. Are you still there? Sorry. I hit my keyboard and I lost my whole window there. You'll have to edit that part out. Did we lose anything other than me stopping? I should have kept going. Okay. So God, the Father gave this to Paul, his joy, and then he gives it to us. We're in possession of it just like he is. I'm an administrator in the program of God. I'm an administrator in very important celestial things. I'm important. You and I, we've been made administrators to something divine, something absolute, and it's the joy of God. And Paul's the apostle of joy. And if you focus on your circumstances and you say to me, Clyde, you don't understand. You're out of touch. You keep talking about joy and happiness, and you don't understand how bad I'm suffering. You don't understand how much suffering's going on out there by your listeners. And you are detached and not connected to them. And I say, how about our apostle who looks beyond the circumstances, who looks beyond the environment, and he sees only Father, and we are the administrators of the joy of God. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say one more. Let me say this, and you can either tag it onto that other part, edit that little closing out. I did want to say this, or this could be a little standalone. So here's the deal about Paul being the apostle of joy, the apostle of Charis. It's not just reading a couple verses and thinking we're seeing something that maybe we've made up in our mind. These are very bold statements. And if we will just, and faith will possess these statements. Faith will embrace these statements. That's my dog Zoe. The mailman's here. So this whole idea of Paul being the apostle of joy, that's Charis. Charis is used 150 times in the Greek scriptures in the New Testament. 155 times. How many times did Paul use the word charis, joy? 110. 110 of the 155 uses of charis is Paul. Would we dare say he's the apostle of charis? He's the apostle of joy. And now here's the very interesting fact, is that his writings make up approximately, roughly, 25% of the whole New Testament. So in 25% of the whole New Testament, Paul uses, by the way, I'm not really good at math. I just Googled it. I said, what percentage of 155 is 110? 70%. 70% of the uses of charis are by Paul in 25% of the writing in the New Testament. He's the apostle of charis. He's the apostle of grace. He's the apostle of